Game begin.
I'm here now with Daniel Mitre. He's the CEO and founder of New Wave Esports. Daniel, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Daniel, esports is on the rise, to say the least, and we've seen Apple and now Google launch esports services on their platforms. How do investors play esports and make money?
Investors can play esports and make money. I mean, look, esports is accessible to everybody. Esports, by definition, is a video game played competitively. And then you have all the support services around that. So it's really competitive gaming, right? And every game has a competitive sort of element to it. But what makes it an esports viable product? And that's up to the community to dictate, hey, I want to play this in an esports fashion. And then, you kind of have the traditional model of sports. Anybody can play baseball in your backyard, but what makes it a professional sport? Well, that's all the companies that come together to monetize on that experience, create great experiences for their consumers or sports players. We're adopting the same thing in esports. So it's taking competitive gaming that you can play in your backyard and bringing in companies that really start to create great experiences around the competitive nature of that. And that's where all the professional athletes come into play. And then on the second part of your question there, how do investors make money in it? Look, esports is on the rise here in North America, but esports has been very a mature market in Asia and Europe. We're taking a lot of cues from there. So it's getting in at the ground level now. I like to compare esports to what cannabis was 5 years ago. So we're at the ground level, invest early because we're building the foundation here. It's kind of a blank page,
right?
And we're setting the standard of how you operate within esports here in North America, which sends wakes globally.
Right. How does New Wave Esports, what is your business model?
So New Wave Esports is an investment and acquisition company. We take working capital and we place that into early and mid-stage companies. So we actually bring the finances and build the companies that build the foundation of esports, that create those experiences that I was telling you about, where gamers latch onto and create amazing lifestyles and lifestyle experiences.
Wow, interesting. So at this point, there are some publicly traded opportunities to invest in for investors, but it's not got the depth that the cannabis industry has, for example, although, as you say, we're at the earliest stage. Are we looking at a timeline that's going to gradually fill with all these different opportunities, which, if it was to follow the cannabis industry, would deteriorate in quality with the age of the sector?
I think what you're seeing now is some big players starting to come out of the space. You have guys like the Immortal Gaming Club, you have Cloud9. These are major teams that have established great business practices around establishing professional players who come in and they compete at a national or global level. But they also operate businesses that are green, that ultimately are optimized. So not only do they have pro teams competing, but they have content programming, which is very important in any team. This is the filler gap between the tent poles of tournaments in which you go out and you compete.
Right.
And so, your previous question, how do you make money in esports? Well, teams is one of those verticals in which you can make money. But it starts with content programming that you sell to sponsorship, you sell ad dollars. Sponsorship makes up to 60 to 70% of a lot of teams' revenue.
So sponsorship, like a corporate sponsor wants to get their brand aligned with a team because they're trying to access that millennial or younger audience.
Yeah, the millennial and Gen Z, which is a hyper-engaged audience. We're talking audiences that consume esports on multiple devices at simultaneously, that also play the game, that also has indisposable money to spend money on things that they're passionate about. And gaming, hardware, those experiences are things that are motivating them to purchase. So responsible teams are, number one, creating the nucleus of content programming, and then around that is the rest of the support services, the teams, all the venues in which they operate, or different conventions that they host.
So I guess one of the ways investors can participate is to invest in teams that are competing for big prize purses in specific game environments?
Yeah, so investors certainly can get involved in esports in that vertical. That's one of 4 verticals New Wave actually invests in. Teams is very important. Teams are making the big headlines. Teams are great media exposure. But if you're investing in teams just to win prize purses, you may want to hedge your bets and actually invest in teams that look at the holistic business of esports. There's a lot that goes into winning a tournament. A game may be hot one year and may not be the next year. And there may be a big game update that completely changes the way athletes strategize and play the game. So that's why in the previous top point there, that it's all about content programming that sells 60 to 70% of sponsorship, and then you lean into your prize winnings.
Sure. How is it that esports and e-gaming, why is it taken until now, until it's sort of exploding onto a global sort of consciousness? Why is it taken, I remember Electronic Arts was building video games back in the 90s. Why didn't esports take off then?
I think there's a lot of catalysts that had to happen in order to see esports the way we see it now. Esports has been running in Asia for 20 years. They started with StarCraft. It was televised in pubs. That's a mainstay. That's something that is very much permanent to the culture over there. In Europe, they've been, I want to say, a good 10 years ahead of us, and they've got a great collegiate scene out there. But why is esports now taking off at a global level? Well, you have great internet speeds now that reduce latency. You have the big transformation from physical to digital products, so it's now accessible to more people worldwide. You have people on multiple devices. You could play a great quality game on your phone now, especially thanks to Apple Arcade. And you have Google Stadia that's coming in and making gaming more accessible for more people. So gaming is now a mass audience affair, whereas 10, 15 years ago, it was more kind of the nerdy thing that you do in your basement, so to speak. But it's more accessible to everybody. There's a lot of different technological catalysts that has helped bring esports to the global front.
Okay, so what level of capital investment is coming to the esports area from investors in, say, 2020?
So what we're seeing is a lot of investors have made their killing in cannabis mining, and a lot of their financial analysts are saying, hey, esports is the next big thing. And a lot of them don't know much about esports. So there's a lot of great money coming into the space as they educate themselves on the potential here. And I think what a lot of investors are starting to find is that they're at the ground level. It's kind of a blank page. And so you need to invest early on the teams that understand, or the companies that understand the long term here. And this is a long term play. This isn't just a quick cash grab. So we're building the foundation of esports. So what kind of capital's coming in? We're seeing millions of dollars come in. New Wave Esports itself has raised several $millions just on the promise that we're building esports, we're building organizations, and we're building a collaborative experience between the different verticals in esports.
We'll leave it there for now. Daniel, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Every other week, we're going to cover what's the latest and greatest events and companies to look at in the esports realm, right here on Midas Letter with New Wave Esports. Daniel Mitre as our co-host. So join us. Thanks for joining us today.